That meeting, Tsecho, as we understand, is still carrying on between the President and business leaders. Now, we know we have our fair share of troubles here in South Africa, but the big focus is on the continent. What's the President been saying about how we grow these economies across Africa?
Good evening once again, Yuveka. So the meeting between the President and the business leaders that are gathered here is expected to end at about 7:30. He spoke earlier to the media, addressing the media and also addressing those that were in attendance, and spoke extensively about the unity that is needed in order to grow the sector and in order to ensure that the economy, not just in South Africa, but in Africa as a whole, is actually strengthened. He also spoke about how there's a need for a conversation of how to look at the future for this particular sector of business, of course, and he spoke about enhancing businesses so that the African continent can really just grow at a higher level and be prospective and at a much higher level than what we know it to be. He also just spoke really asking the business leaders to stand together in unity and ensure that they come together in order to grow this. We do know that South Africa is now chairing the AU, so he said that it is not just about him as the chair of that AU, but of course he also said that it will need all South Africans to take part in this, and also specifically the business leaders. But Yuveka, let's just take a closer listen to what he had to say.
Told that it could be $3 trillion of a market. So the opportunities are enormous. As the Minister said, I expect this to be the first of a number of meetings that we would like to hold with yourselves. We want, as South Africa, to advance the interests of our South African businesses and to be focused in doing so. But at the same time, we've got to be much broader than that, particularly now that we are going to chair the African Union to advance the interests of our continent. So we wear two hats, the South African hat as well as the continental hat.
Should I come this way as well? Please, can you come? So we do know that you also spoke about learning from the EU, and we know the importance of this particular agreement. But just to give us context about the importance and also what we can expect and the leaders that were actually here, I'm joined by our business anchor, Ropiwa Madzena. Ropiwa, so we know that now the leaders have started walking out. What exactly is the importance of this particular agreement?
So the Africa Free Trade Area Agreement is crucial in terms of unlocking Africa's borders and allowing South African businesses to thrive even further across the continent. And this will allow South Africa locally as well to gain access to Africa markets. We do know that there are some companies that are already operating on the African continent, but there are still some challenges, and many have highlighted that it's easier usually to trade with the EU than it is to trade with African countries. So the Africa Free Trade Area Agreement is going to look to change that. What I find interesting also is that a lot of our trade, actually South Africa's biggest trading partner is the EU currently. So it'll be interesting to see how those dynamics change as the trade agreement is implemented. But I've actually got, and I'm very excited to be speaking to her for the first time as the Chief Executive of NASPA South Africa, Ms. Aputi Mahanyele Dabengwa. Thank you so much for your time this evening. I mean, my mouth is watering at some of the insights that were shared between yourselves as business leaders and the President. A general overview of the major concerns that you had to share with him this evening.
Well, I think first of all, we were all very grateful for the opportunity to be able to come and present our experiences and also issues that we have faced operating on the African continent. And it was an issue of discussing both the challenges as well as the opportunities that we have seen on the African continent. And I think when you look at all of the companies that were there, both from the financial services, telecoms, internet, such as ourselves, and many others, you'll see that many of the issues are quite common in terms of the challenges that people have faced over the years. But it is an issue of also finding a way for us to be able to work together more effectively. The reality is that many of us still want to invest more on the African continent, but we want to be able to do so in a meaningful way and for the long term. And so we are really excited about this. We are really grateful for the opportunity that we had from the President and from Minister Patel and the other ministers who were there for us to come and present our views, and also for us to be able to participate in this process going forward.
Now, NASPA's, as you said, internet business, and you have mentioned earlier this year that you're going to be investing quite significantly in South African internet businesses. You've done so in the likes of India with tech startups. Your plans for the rest of the African continent, are there little pockets of diamonds that are, on different parts that you're looking to perhaps invest in?
Well, ever since we actually launched our fund, the capital that we have set aside for investments into the internet businesses in South Africa, we've had a lot of interest from internet developers across the African continent, and so we would be very keen to be able to fund their projects as well, because the reality is, in the businesses that we invest in, they tend to be across different parts of the African continent, and so we would be very, very keen to look at businesses, whether it's in payments, whatever sector it is, we'd be very keen to have a look at them. So we're open for business, and we're just waiting for the right opportunity to come around to us, but we're very, very keen to have a look, and we will certainly be very open to opportunities to work together with the public sector, and particularly with the President and with the ministers, in ensuring that this trade agreement is something that's given to full effect under the AU leadership of President Ramaphosa.
Pretty many thanks for your time this evening. Appreciate it. There you hear it. Jeremy Uveka, a fruitful conversation, first of many conversations with the President of the country about how the African Free Trade Agreement can allow South African businesses to contribute positively and meaningfully, as Putti has said, to the rest of the African continent.